Welcome back to the Rugby Rundown on Megaphone Rugby in conjunction with Rugby Unfiltered. Jan de Koning and Loffie Eloh's own podcast on their channel, Rugby Unfiltered. I'm going to put the link down here. Make sure you visit them as well. So, Jan, with that out of the way, welcome back. It's nice. It's been a while. So, thank you for making time for me again.
Yes, I think both of us know what it's like getting old. Unlike some Springbok players, we don't make as much money as they do, but it is nice to be back and it's nice to talk rugby again.
Yeah, well, we don't make any money. Anyway, thanks, man. We just finished watching the press conference with Rassie Erasmus, and in typical Rassie style, it wasn't as short and sweet as it was supposed to be. And he said to the press officer, Zina, I don't care if I take too long, I'm going to talk about this, remember? And you actually asked him a couple of questions. What, firstly, were your impressions overall of this press conference? Is it a confident Rassie? Is it a bit of a worried Rassie? What are you seeing there?
I see a Rassie that knows exactly where he's going with his team. He doesn't mess around. He's got his plans. I did an article where he said that he likes, he's going to have some interesting selections, and he's definitely going to come up with a few tricks. So it sounded to me like Rassie knows exactly where he's going. You know, he wasn't concerned about the list of injuries. He explained who's the long-term injury. So I think Rassie in general is a comfortable man. I'd say he's comfortable. I mean, obviously, with the injuries we've got, there's issues, but I think Rassie is very comfortable with where the Boks are.
Let's dive into those injuries a little bit, because initially he didn't want to, name the names, and you actually asked him the question about certain specific players, about Eban and the likes, and he had to dig out his phone and go see what's actually the situation on, name by name. That was quite interesting. You asked him about several specific players, and he gave specific answers, which was, I thought, a bit of an eye-opener. Talk to me about that.
Okay, so the standout from that for me personally, I know some people might look at the other players, and we'll go through them now, but the standout for me was definitely Salmaan Moerat, because obviously Ruben replaced him earlier this week, and everybody said, what happened to Salmaan? And people started mocking him. Did he bump his toe again? Did somebody drop a cup of coffee on his toe or whatever? The reality is he's got a serious long-term neck injury. Rassie said, and his words were, I think it's very serious. So, and when Salmaan has been injured a lot in the last few years, various injuries, but he has had problems, and now suddenly, which includes a concussion, a serious concussion, and now to have a neck injury at his age, he's still a young player. I mean, it might not be as bad as I think it is, but Rassie used the word serious, and when he talks serious neck injury, then it's long-term. So to me, that's the most significant of the injuries. And then I'll run through. I mean, Eban is back. Lood is back. So we covered that lock. Props, we know that Frans and Trevor Nyakane is still injured. We didn't expect them back because they're not even in the squad. So I think those two guys' careers are over. So that's the other significant thing for me that people need to start making peace with is as good as Frans is and as confident as people are that he's still training with the Stormers. We know that he doesn't train with the team. He doesn't scrum. He trains with the team on the sideline. He can have input. He can become a scrum coach like some other players. There's lots. Okay, and we know RG Snyman. We all know that RG is not going to play this year, so he's long term. And we've spoken about Salmaan. The other significant injuries that I do need to Ruan Venter. That's a big one because Rassie made a point of saying that Ruan he wanted to start playing at 4 lock. So I see him using Ruan as 4 lock flank, much like Franco Mostert. So because he's young enough, I think that's the position that Rassie sees him in for the future, for 20 World Cup next year as a backup to Franco, and then after that, maybe for the 31 World Cup that Franco Mostert, because he's got a big engine. You see, and that's significant. That's why I say Rassie's always got a plan. So we know he's looking for somebody like Franco that can do that sort of job, that's got a big engine and that doesn't, he does hard work all the time. So Ruan Venter is a massive blow. Pieter-Steph is available. Sia is available. Krappie's long-term injury, so Morne van der Berg is not. Kobus Reinig, that was an interesting one. So when he said Kobus Reinig is available, but Kobus is not going to like it because he's not going to play until England. So Kobus is not going to play in the warm-up game against the Barbers. So Rassie is keeping him in cotton wool for the England game. Grant Williams is ready. Ethan Hooker is long-term. Fassi is back. So yeah, those are the key ones. So Yeah, I think it is very interesting that he was, but that's what I like about Rassie. If you ask him a specific question, he will answer you and he will answer you honestly. So he gave us a good insight into what type of team we're going to have. So, if you want to, who's going to be his locks? Eben and Loot. So, and if things look a bit odd, you might rest them for the Barbers and play them against England. But I think very much, because both of them haven't played a lot of game time. Loot's only just come back from injury, played a couple of games in Japan. And Eben, we know, hasn't played. So Eben is in desperate need of some game time. So he's going to play.
Well, the big thing that I picked up this Barbarians SAA, these two games are basically going to be to give the players who haven't played a bit, give them some game time and rest some of those players who've played too much. On that subject, I bumped into Franco Mostert yesterday. I didn't approach him. I'm too shy. But I saw him walking around with his family in a shopping center in Pretoria. And I thought, why is he at the alignment camp? And the next thing I was wondering about, 5 lock, why not Ruan Nortje? Why Loot de Jager? But we're only talking about this SAA Barbarians 2 games, aren't we?
Yeah, so next Saturday, the night after the URC final. So Franco, I think, is one of those players that had a lot of game time in Japan, and Rassie knows that. So he's probably going to rest Franco. And the mention he mentioned Franco and say, what Franco can do. Franco's got a big engine. He will always. So he doesn't need to play Franco against the Barbers. He needs to give somebody else a chance. So you can look at Ruben or maybe Riley Nortje. Riley Nortje will play the SAA team. He might even captain the SAA team. That's because Rassie spoke quite a bit about Riley and his maturity and his leadership around the team. He said he's not Windgat. He's just very mature for his age. And you must remember, the kid's only 20, or 19. He's still 19 because he's still leading the under-20 team, the baby box still. So that's one of our future Springbok captains. Rassie really likes him. So I can see Riley coming in for a Eben or a Loot for the long term, because he plays at 5. So it'll be in Loot's place past beyond the 27 World Cup. So I can almost guarantee you, Riley's going to lead the SAA team.
Yeah, and it's Riley Norton and not Riley Nortje. Before we get up
Nortje and Riley Norton. Apologies to all the viewers. I do this. I have this habit of mixing up names.
Yeah, you know what? There wasn't much more that I could pick up from that. We actually saw some very weird potential teams floating around, but I don't think that was official. I mean, one of those teams had Riley Norton starting for the Springboks against the Barbarians. That's not an official team, is it?
No official teams. I've seen quite a few. You're right. But they're all fan teams. The reality is, if these fan sites, and there's more and more of them popping up. Every guy with a cell phone now has his own website and his own YouTube page and all these things. And we know they're not making money because we're in the industry. The reality is they're just fans, and they want, some guy in Cape Town thinks Riley should now start at lock. No, Rassie is going to use that game to get players like Loot and Eben, as we said, ready for England, because that's going to be our starting lock pairing for England. So Riley will captain the SAA team. That's where he will play. And those under 20 players in the squad, I can guarantee you a number of them will be playing for the SAA team, so that they can get a feel for the Springbok setup. They're training together. That's the other thing which I like about Rassie. He explains to you how it works, and he's not shy to speak. So he clearly said these two teams are training together. Everybody knows who's going to play for the A team already. Everybody knows who's going to play for the Springbok team already next Saturday in Port Elizabeth. So those guys train together all the time. He says the first time those two teams are going to split is going to be for the captain's run on a Friday. So the SAA team will be taken by Stick and Dion Davids, and they will then go have a captain's as SAA team, and then that coaching team, and that they will be separate. And then on the Springboks will be under Rassie and Tony and those guys, and they will train their own captain's run. And the Saturday morning, before the game, the SAA team will leave the hotel earlier because they've got an earlier kickoff, and the box will stay a bit longer. So you already know those teams are picked. Rassie's already got his team in his head. We can speculate all we like. The best thing for me is I want to see how close I was. I selected a couple of teams, and I want to see how close I was. So yeah, I mean, if you're desperate, I'll give you my team.
I want to hear it. Give it. Let's hear. Yeah.
So here's my Springbok team that I said is going to play the Barbers. And I assumed all these players are fit, and I think I'm still right, because there's people who are asking about Malcolm Marx, Damian Willemse, Edwin van der Merwe, Jesse Kriel, Andre Esterhuizen, Jason Colby, Manie Libbok, Grant Williams. I mean, we know Grant's ready. Jasper Wiese, Pieter Steff de Tooy, Siya Kolisi captain, Lode Jager, Eben Etzebeth, Carlos Sadi, Malcolm Marx, Oxen Che. That's my starting 15. And then I've got the bench. I'm not going to bore the people with the bench. My SAA team is Quinn Horn, Jaco Williams, Lukhanyo Am, Damien de Allende, Jerenzo Julius, Vusi Moyo, Faf de Klerk. Faf was in the press conference as well. Pepsi Buthelezi, Ben Jason Dixon, Paul de Villiers, Riley Norton captain, Ruben van Heerden, Neethling Forshey, JJ Kotze, and Nchuku Nchunu. So that's my teams. So let's see. I mean, when they name the teams next week, we can come back to this and say you were 10 out, you were 20 out, you had nothing right. So there's already these guys that say now Damien Allender will start next to Jesse, and that's possible. Somebody else will. People said no, and Malcolm Marx didn't train today. Rassie is keeping some guys on us, but Malcolm Marx is ready to play. So I think he's going to have. It's going to be the starting 15 against the Barbers. A few Bulls will come in. So that's the other thing he said. The Bulls that are playing in this final, they will come in. Because they match ready. He was very pertinent about that. He said they are match ready, and that's a significant thing about the Rassie's press conference, is that those Bulls are all ready to play. And he's not going to hide them and give them a week off or stuff. He says they'll bring atmosphere, they'll bring confidence into the team, and they'll be ready to play. So the changes will come around which Bulls players are going to. So obviously at fly-off, Pollard will come into the picture. Manie starts, maybe Pollard off the bench. So that will change my bench a bit. Scrum off, I think at SA team. So, yeah. Maybe scrum off a bit.
You're talking about the England game now. You're not talking about the SAA, because the Bulls can't play against the Zimbabwe.
Correct. Yeah. So when we talk to the England team, so the SAA team will be as close as possible, with the exception of the Bulls, because they're not available for the Barbers game. But after that will be the basis of the Springbok team for the SAA team, for the England team to face England, and the Bulls will come into the mix. So for the England game, so you can go. We know Villiers not going to be there, unless there's a lot of injuries around fullback. We know Andre Pollard will come into the mix. Scrum off will come into the mix. Your loose forwards will all into the mix. So the loose forwards might be very different. But although I can't see that, the loose forwards might be in the SAA team. Well, they won't be in the SAA team because there's no SAA team for the England game. But they could be on the bench, So the bench might look very different than the Barbers game. At lock, who knows? Maybe if there's an injury, Ruan Nortje will come into the picture. So I mean, it's going to be interesting. And you've got Wilco. You'll get Wilco that comes back. Johan Grobler that comes back. He can be on the bench. So it's going to be an interesting selection for England.
So many Springbok. Gerard Steenekamp, Jan-Hendrik Wessels. I mean, the only Bulls player in the pack that's not a Springbok or potential Springbok is Ruan Vermaak. And we know there's a crisis at 4. He might get the nod as well. Kobus Wiese is going to be there.
Kobus Wiese will be on the bench.
Eldrich Louw is there. Emrys Papier is there. Kane Moody will be there. There's a lot of them. Like you said.
Rassie actually mentioned Kobus, and he said Kobus is a 4. So Kobus will be in the group as a 4. So those guys will all immediately go into the Springbok group. And I think the youngsters, the guys that will fall out, will be once the Barbers and the SAA games are over. I think those under 20 players will go back to the under 20s and start preparing for the baby box, because they've now had a taste of the Springbok environment, and they've had a game, and they've showed what they can and can't do. So
okay,
that's where the Bulls are.
The one thing that I took from this is the fact that Stick is going to be the coach of the SAA team. And Rassie sort of hinted that towards the end of that conversation that most assistant coaches have ambitions to be head coaches. Do you think that was an early sign of, Stick maybe taking over one day from Rassie?
It's not the first time that hint's been dropped. You can put your house on it that Stick and Dion Davids will be in the running for the head coach. I think Stick will be the head coach and Dion will stay with the forwards. I think he's comfortable with being the forwards coach and remaining the forwards coach. But just remember, Rassie is still around till 31. So I think Stick will play a more prominent role. Rassie might, maybe a bit like he did with Jacques Nienaber, just go on the touchline and help assist Stick from the sideline. And it worked well with him and Jacques Nienaber in 23 in France. And I can't see why it can't work again with Stick. But almost certain that Stick is the next head coach after Rassie.
Well, talking about Jacques Nienaber, we know what's happening in Ireland, and now Tony Brown suddenly. Now, it's not suddenly. We all knew it was going to happen, but the official announcement caught us a little bit unawares. Let's call it that. Rassie just laughed it off. He's very happy that he's actually going to New Zealand. They're happy for Tony. He's 2 years down on a 4-year contract, kind of that thing. That's an interesting thing. But he also said there, and another little hint that he dropped, that they're already looking at potential candidates to replace Tony with. Who do you think are the potential ones? I think for me the most obvious one is Felix Jones. He was the attack coach when Jacques Nienaber was still there in 2019. He can probably easily step up and do that as well, because it looks like Felix Jones is sort of a jack of all trades in that team.
Would you not look at Franco Smith?
Yeah, no, definitely.
We know Scotland is after him. We know Scotland's after him. But it wouldn't surprise me if us is starting to talk to Franco for post 2027.
But would Franco be happy to be an assistant coach?
Yeah, no, that's a question. Are you asking about guys Rassie is talking to?
No, I'm just talking about potential candidates. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think Franco's a good candidate.
So will he accept it? That's the question. I think Franco, if he tells somebody. It's a bit like Tony. Tony is not going there to be head coach for the All Blacks. He's going to be assistant. And he knows that. But he wants to coach his own country. So he gets a chance to go coach the All Blacks. And I think Franco will be the same. Coach Scotland or coach the Springboks. You have a chance. So yeah, depends how happy Franco's family is in Scotland. Maybe they want a bit more of Bloemfontein's warm weather. And sunny days, so who knows? But that's the one person I can think of outside of the current coaching setup.
And Jacques Nienaber, he's not an attack coach, but I mean, there's such a long history with him and Rassie. His contract ends before the World Cup. Any chance of him rejoining the Springboks, do you think?
Leinster said they're going to keep him for another year. So they said he'll be back next season. So that means he's going to, I suppose it ends just before the World Cup at the end of mid-year, July 27. So it's potential. I don't think he'll be back for the World Cup, but post World Cup he could be back. So
interesting.
Given the love he receives from the Irish media, people calling him the devil. I mean, I've heard some absurd things. So then you get idiots who try to play it down and say, "Oh, in Ireland it's a phrase, the deal you make with the devil, that's." You're calling him the devil, So anyway.
Yeah, we had several podcasts on that specific subject. We actually got an Irish-speaking or Irish person to talk to us about that as well. So I think don't take it too literally. I don't really think he meant Jacques is the devil, but I mean. Yeah, if the shoe fits, kind of a thing. But yeah, let's move on quickly to this URC final upcoming. I attended Loftus this morning to hear what Johan Ackerman's got to say. And what was interesting, I was there in person. There was also an online conversation afterwards. But what was interesting is he's very confident, but not arrogant. There's a big difference here. And I asked him specifically about the occasion. Because I thought, I said to you 2 years ago when the Bulls played Glasgow, I thought the Bulls were a little bit in awe. They were a little bit, big-eyed and I thought I saw a little bit of that against Glasgow, that the occasion got to them a little bit. And I asked him how would he approach this, because people are talking about this match coming up against Leinster being almost Springboks versus Ireland to a degree. It's not exactly the same, I know that. But the point is it's going to be a very intense match. And how is he preparing that? Do you think the Bulls will be up for it, mentally, to take this 4th out of 5 finals and actually win the title for a change?
I think they'll be up for it. There's some subtle changes. So first of all, their loose forwards are very, very different. They've got Andre Pollard, they've got a fly-off who's been there. So, as you know, Andre also had a press conference today. And you can see Andre's confidence. He had an off day with a boot and he laughed it off. He says, "Oh, yeah, I had a horrible day. It was terrible. And, but I'm getting back on the horse." The loose forwards will be different. I think Yeah, I think they're up. I asked after last Saturday's win over Glasgow, asked Johan exactly the same thing because he's played in so many finals already. Not just in with the Lions or Transvaal with the Lions. He's played also in Japan, and so he's fully aware of what it takes in playoffs. And yeah, both like he and Pollard said, is just go and enjoy the occasion. If you win, you win. If you don't win, you don't win. But don't make it bigger. And I think it's exactly what Johan, he was like that with the Lions as well. At that stage, we couldn't understand it. And if you make too much, and that's what happens, you hype the players up so bad. And maybe that was Jake's mistake. The good old days of having players bump their heads against the dressing room wall to get them hyped up is gone. You need to, with the new era professional players, you need to find a different way. Just go out there and do what you've been doing. So I think Andre Pollard's message is the same thing. Go out there and do what we've been doing all season, the way we've been doing it all season. It's worked. Why do you want to change it?
I asked him, he was asked, one of the questions was, several of the Bulls players' last game, for example, Ruan Arkia, who's been there forever, Gately Arends' last game, Wilco Louw's last game. There's a couple of, milestones and everything else. And he just said he doesn't believe in doing that because when you make too much of an issue of it, like you just said now, too much of an occasion, and it falls short, it puts too much pressure on the team, for example. It's going to be just another game. And I thought that was quite a mature approach. He also talked about his past, finals that he's been in. And interestingly enough, for Gloucester that he coached there, in the final of the Challenge Cup, which I didn't even realize, they lost the game in the last minute for conversion after a try. Otherwise, they would have won. They dominated the entire team and lost it in the last minute. He talked about that red card that Kwagga Smith received in the 2017 Super Rugby final the year before. They played against the Hurricanes in an actual almost hurricane, a storm, he called it. He's been through this. He's lost enough now. He wants to win. I could see it. He's fired up. He wants to win this one.
Yeah, no, I think Johan is grounded, Evia, and I'm like the way that he's not shy to put his faith forward. I mean, he's a very Christian, grounded person. And that's important for a person who's like that. You shouldn't be shy to say you're a Christian. And I'm very proud of the fact that Johan is like that. And I think that's where he gets his calmness from, because you understand that you don't overhype the players and you can keep them calm. If you think 21-3 at halftime or just before halftime, after 30 minutes, how do you keep the players calm? All he said to them is, just make sure we score the next try. Then it's game on. He didn't go and say, no, we must score 20 points. He didn't. He just calmly said to them, listen, guys, just make sure we score the next try. If we score the next try, it's game on. Because then you put doubt in Glasgow's mind, and it happened. Because after 30 minutes, it was 21-3, and Glasgow never scored. For next 50 minutes, Glasgow didn't score a single point. And the Bulls had other opportunities. I mean, if we think Andre Pollard missed 3 penalties and a conversion, it could have been a very different score. Or one of those penalties went over, they started on the halfway line, and who knows what could have happened there, So, yeah. But I think the Bulls in general, that second half, they dominated, and they tactically, that's the game. I mean, Pollard might not have kicked well at the post, but tactically, it was a masterclass from him, and people don't always see that. They might have seen one of Willie's weird kicks or some weird passes and stuff, and they'll hop on about that. But they missed 80% of the game that the Bulls did well, and what they got them the win in the end is because they played the second half perfectly.
Yeah, that's what interesting. You said to us, I asked you what was said at halftime, and we've spoken to some other players as well, and they were sort of, not much was said because the coach has basically a minute to speak to them, because they each have a minute and a half for themselves, and they speak to the attack coach and the defense coach separately, and then the head coach has a couple of words to say. But Johan dropped today, and he said, Elrich Louw actually said, listen, it all depends on how we go out and how do we react. Do we go into our shell and sort of give up, or do we go out there and play the game of our lives? And Elrich actually was the one who, said the motivating words, if I can call it that. That was quite interesting to me. He's not the captain or anything. He's been the captain before, but he's definitely one of the leaders in the team.
It's those senior players. That's what I'm saying. If you look at last year's team and you look at the loose forwards that's going to be in the final, they're very different. And this team there's no injuries in the team as well. So you know that this Bulls team is going to be a very different team to the one from last year's final. More calm, more mature, and more understanding of what they need to do in the final. So I don't think there'll be wide-eyed deer in the headlights type of Bulls team. I think that this is going to be a Bulls team that's going to give Leinster. So remember, the Bulls scrum is immense. Croke Park has got a very different surface to what the Stormers had at Aviva in Dublin, which is a very loose type of surface. So, the Stormers couldn't scrum. They wanted to scrum, but they couldn't properly scrum. Maybe something was happened. Maybe the referee didn't see things. The reality is the Bulls have got a massive scrum, and they will use it. They've got really good playmakers, and I'm sure Johan would work on the playmakers, the decision makers. And if you will, I think the players is going to be key for me will be Willie. People can say what they like about him. His reading of the game. He might be 2 yards slower, but his reading of the game is brilliant. He can still put other players into space, into places. And then Pollard's reading of the game, and then the set pieces. The Bulls line-out will be good. The scrums will be massive. So I think set pieces are going to be. And the breakdown, of course, we know how Leinster plays the breakdown. I think the Bulls are going to have to stack the breakdowns. When they carry the ball, they're going to have to make sure that they protect their own ball.
One thing he also said, that's interesting how he mentioned breakdowns. He said for the first time this season against Glasgow in the first half, the Bulls were slow to the breakdown and Glasgow managed to put them under pressure. So obviously they're going to be paying a lot of attention to that. But what's interesting to me is how the Bulls came back and started dominating. We're talking about Leinster being the island team. Glasgow is pretty much a Scottish national team. Not completely, but to a degree as well. And 2 years ago, the Bulls would not have been able to come back from that side, that far down. Last year in the final, I think they were 19-0 behind at halftime against Leinster, never made it back into the game, scored 1 try. But then again, it was a completely different team, a completely different environment. And the one thing I can say for sure from personal experience, this is a happy Bulls team. I think that might just at the end of the day make the difference.
As we know, Jake and his assistant coaches didn't really get on well. We know that Andries Becker and Chris left when Johan came in. He had problems with them as well, not as obvious as Jake had. And some of the players didn't like Jake's attitude, And I think Johan's different. That person, that man management is a big difference between Johan's team and Jake's team. And I think, I don't know if those two assistant coaches were the poison that poisoned the players, or what the issue was. But there was definitely an issue. And Jake's now got... Johan's got a very, very happy, and they're all Christians. I mean, you can see them after every match, win or lose, they pray in the coach's box afterwards. And that's their grounding, whether people like it or not. And it's not whether they're wrong or right. It's what grounds them, what keeps them solid, and what keeps them together. It's because they got similar backgrounds or similar beliefs. And that keeps them together. And a lot of the players, as you will know, are also Afrikaans Christians. And for them, it's important. For players like that, it's important.
Yeah. All right, Jan, thank you for that, for this very short, impromptu podcast. I appreciate it. And we'll do it again next week. Thanks for making time for me.
Thank you, Mbia. And it's nice. I mean, like I said, I missed our chats, and it's lucky to just chat rugby for a change. So, we'll probably have something next week for the final, have a proper analysis for the final. And till next week, cheers.